Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well and welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Luana and I have been an intuitive reader and healer for twin flames for over 4 years now. Something that I want to talk about in this video is twin flame or high-level soulmate soul contracts. This is something that I want to talk about because oftentimes when I'm doing readings for clients, there's almost this question hanging in the air about their twin flame connection or their really high-level soulmate connection of, like when are things going to change? Like why are things the way that they are? Namely, this happens when, someone is experiencing communication blockages or any kind of struggle that you might encounter on your path. Something that I learned very early on in my spiritual awakening is that we all come into this life with something called a soul plan. Now, in the spiritual community, you'll see lots of different names for this. Some people call this a soul blueprint, your soul's plan, your mission, your soul contract. I like to just call it a soul contract because when I've done readings, that's always how it's come through. There is something called, your overall soul mission. It's like where your soul wants to go, what it wants to learn, what it wants to accomplish and create in the world. And then kind of as little checkpoints along the way, there are soul contracts that you will have with other members of your soul family. These members of your soul family will incarnate with you and you often have many past lives with them. On a soul level, you're like best buddies. When we incarnate with our twin flame or with a very high level soulmate, there's often a very significant soul contract at play. This is why these connections can seem so destabilizing and life-changing. Like on a 3D level, you might look at your twin flame connection and think to yourself, wow, this person effed up my life, or like they messed up my life, or they changed things. They set me on this like path that I wouldn't have gone on before. And we can be tempted to look at that on a 3D level and think it's bad. But on a higher level, on a divine level, actually everything is working out like it was supposed to. I guarantee you that if you've met your twin flame and they've really quote unquote disrupted your life, if you fast forwarded 5 years and looked back and you've actually spent those 5 years, focusing on doing your spiritual work, your spiritual healing, following what you're really passionate about and letting your life unfold, you'll see that that meeting with your twin flame was something that was so divinely intended. Like your life would not have worked out the same way if you had not met them in that way and had those interactions in the way that they changed you and inspired you. So these soul contracts are predestined. They're something that was always meant to happen. It was always meant to catalyze you in the way that it did. And I guarantee if you're watching this video and you're relating to this, you've not even experienced the full extent of that contract, because these contracts span lifetimes. Like it's something that is set up for your entire life. If you think you've been through a lot at this point or so far on your journey, there's so much more that is still going to unfold and happen for you. And I want to put out a disclaimer because, sometimes like we can get apprehensive when we hear about how these soul contracts can be so life-changing and cause so much upheaval. It's usually only in the first few years of meeting your twin flame that you experience the craziest changes. And when I say meeting your twin flame, I know there's especially some clients I've worked with who they met their twin flame very young and they didn't experience the spiritual awakening until they're like in their 40s or 50s. So when I say like the first 5 years or first few years after meeting your twin flame, it's actually the first few years after having that initial kind of burst of twin flame spiritual energy. Basically whenever the connection activates itself. And you'll know when that happens because it will be very life-changing. So you and your twin flame connection, or whoever you have a soul contract with, are going to move through different phases of that soul contract. So commonly you might have a period of separation. I see this a lot with clients. It doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong, but there is actually a spiritual purpose to being in a physical separation. Oftentimes these are periods of intense transformation and looking within when you actually need to disconnect from your twin flame or soul contract partner, and it really catalyzes you to make certain changes in your life or to have certain wounds come up or just, have that quiet time of separation and isolation to kind of like focus on yourself. These are also times when your telepathic abilities, your very psychic abilities, your intuitive abilities, your empathic abilities really come online with full clarity. There can also be, parts of your soul contract where you're very heavily in physical contact triggering each other, you know, affecting each other, making each other realize, oh, I don't want this for my life, I want this and this instead. These would all be parts of a soul contract. Another element of soul contract is soul lessons. A soul lesson is specifically something that you learn or a way that you up-level yourself when you're experiencing struggle or any kind of adversity that is being brought up by the connection. If you're someone who, for example, you know, maybe you've dealt with a lot of jealousy and you might have met your twin flame and had a lot of third-party situations, there could be a soul lesson there that you planned with your twin flame around jealousy, and the lesson of that experience could be to learn on a visceral, somatic level your own worth and how worthy you are of everything that you desire, of your connection and of the love that you want. You might also, for example, if you're going through a period of separation, you could have a soul lesson around healing the energy of abandonment. There might be a higher level spiritual purpose there to realize that you never really are truly alone, and to maybe stop playing into maybe an ancestral energy where you kind of victimize yourself and feel bad for yourself if you experience abandonment, or maybe even reinforce the abandonment by, you know, pushing people out of your life. And these are all just examples of how things can play out. So however this resonates for you, apply this to your connection. And you can even write this down on a piece of paper. Like, write down, what do you think that your soul lesson is? Maybe you can look at the past, like, what was I learning at this, you know, specific time? And what am I learning now? And what do I think I'll be moving forward to learn in the near future? Like, when we begin to like really think about it and look at the spiritual structures that are holding our life in place, like, our life stops becoming this arbitrary, bad things always happen to me, like I have no control over my life. Like, you start to realize that your whole life has spiritual structure to it. And the great thing about this is when you recognize there's a soul lesson, is the same moment that you are able to move forward past it and move forward into an empowered state of mind. So that's some food for thought, you know? Like, if you're going through something with your twin flame or a soul contract, ask yourself, if this is a soul lesson, what could I learn here? And the second that you learn the soul lesson, you'll be able to move forward into the next, you know, phase of your connection or your life. I see a lot of clients come to me, and when I read for them, I kind of notice that they've been in a certain soul lesson for a while and they're not moving forward, not because, you know, they're doomed to stay in that soul lesson or that soul period, but it's simply because they're not learning the soul lesson that's there, because they feel like a victim to their circumstances. But when you can start to shift to a really empowered mindset, you will be able to create change like instantly in your connection, because you're finally waking up to what your soul wants you to pay attention to, and then you can just move on to the next phase, because once you've learned your lesson, there's no need for the universe to keep trying to teach it to you, right? So I hope you found something interesting within this video. Feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think your current soul lesson is and how you can navigate that. If you want to book a reading with me or work with me, I will link all that. That's in my website. I'll leave that in the description. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and take care, and I will see you guys in the next video.